So, the guitar on the right of this picture is my Epiphone Hummingbird 2014 model, which I bought brand new. She is my preferred acoustic guitar to gig with, being as she has a large body, which is known as a dreadnought guitar, and a fantastic sound. And lots of people comment on that, in fact. To which end I quite often inquire, is it me or is it the guitar that makes it sound so good? Invariably, though, there is no reply. How very polite they all are, eh? She is known as Big Bertha, and I have made no modifications to her. I am a flat picker mostly, with my preferred plectrum being a Dava controlled pick. It's my to-go for pick every time. Whilst the strings I opt for are 12 to 53 gauge Gibson Masterbuilt Premium, with my second choice being D'Addario. Other makes are available, of course. I have always looked after her, but unfortunately accidents do happen, and horror of all horrors, the neck got snapped one day. This occurred just having finished my gig at an open-air festival in Stratford-upon-Avon. In fact, I still had my lead in my hand and was wrapping everything up as the band was setting up in the adjoining gazebo. It was almost as if the wrath of God was upon me. The blue sky with white fluffy clouds suddenly changed, and the torrential rain and wind came out of nowhere. Trees were bent double and people were running for cover. The storm could really not have lasted much more than a minute, believe me. And during that time, my speakers on stand suddenly hit the deck. I managed to catch my microphone as that also went flying, and my guitar got wiped out, which was on its stand, by the way, as the gazebo took off in the air, which subsequently took about 10 people to pull it back down from the tree. Then I heard somebody cry, "Oh my God, man, I'm so sorry about your guitar, look at it." Having picked her up and stared at the broken neck in disbelief, somebody then said to me, "That looks repairable to me." Sure enough, it turned out it was. To cut a long story short, the owner whose site it was, who hadn't tethered down the gazebo properly at all, refused to pay up, so I had to stump up the money. The entire amount that I got for playing the gig went on fixing the neck of the guitar. So a big shout out is due to Lance for carrying out such a wonderful job and allowing me to continue to use her. Thank you. Well, we live and learn. That was back in 2017 and I've moved forward from there. After having her neck glued, she's still a great guitar for gigging with, so I continue to do so. Unfortunately though, through so much use of my beloved guitar, the iconic Hummingbird pickguard has worn out, the motif that is. This Hummingbird motif, of course, is Gibson guitar's iconic design, which is also used on Epiphone guitars, such as mine. So the obvious answer was to purchase a replacement pickguard. Easier said than done though. It turns out that neither Gibson nor Epiphone will supply replacement guards, which I think is probably because all and sundry will be sticking them on the guitars because they are really quite beautiful and they don't want that. I'm guessing that's the reason, not really sure. And neither could I seem to find a suitable replacement online. Anything that was available seemed to be poor quality. So I contacted a local luthier to see if she could source one for me, and she actually told me to get one in the UK would probably cost me close on £200. Eek! While she also stated that it was unlikely she would be able to get her hands on one for me anyway. So what to do now? I put the question to a couple of friends of mine, these being Wonky the Wonderwolf and Spider-Cat, who are characters that I created for one of my books, hand-sewn by me, by the way. Open brackets, more from them at a different date. Close brackets. "Hey, you need to restore it yourself," said Wonky the Wonderwolf. "Yeah, I agree," said Spider-Cat. So I hopped into one of the crazy Wolfmobiles and headed to the local craft shop. And I opted to purchase some acrylic paint pens, having already had a modicum of success with an acrylic marker I used to touch up some damage sustained with the broken neck incident. Once again, other makes are available, which I still have to finish by adding some lacquer, incidentally. I opted for the paint pens because I thought it would probably be the best option, as my hand is a little bit shaky, not as steady as it was, being as I'm now getting on in years, and I thought that would be better than using a paintbrush. So having matched the shades as best I could, I set to work, these shades being black for the background and gold and white, by the way. As the Hummingbird design had more or less completely disappeared, I need to find a copy online in order to copy that design back onto the pickguard. But that proved to be more difficult as well. Whether this is possibly due to copyright of the design again, I'm not really sure. I have no idea in actual fact. So I resorted to finding an image of my own, because everything I found online seemed to be very blurred or unclear. Thus I was thankful, of course, that I had taken a decent shot when my Hummingbird was in all of her glory. And in no time at all, I had recopied the design and resurrected my old pickguard again. I was happy. End of story. But oh no, alas and alacrity yet again. Within a week, the motif began to wear out through use. Having already applied a coat of clear lacquer, I quickly bolstered it by applying some more, and then, letting it dry for a couple of hours, another coat. But it looked terrible, like a 3-year-old child, or even younger, had actually done the job.
No disrespect intended, other age groups are available.
Several hours down the line, I made the decision, I'm going to have to get rid of this. It looks a mess. What am I going to do? It had cured so hard by that time, I had to scrape it. That was the only option I had. But that wasn't working. It was scratching the pickguard. The only option left open to me was to use copious amounts of car paint restorer, which did the trick, but it also removed the motif, and I was back to the drawing board yet again. Thus I concocted yet another cunning and somewhat genius plan to rid the world of spiders. Oh, sorry, wrong channel. No, my new master plan is actually to find some sort of covering that I can stick over the top or place over the top of my pickguard once I have repainted it again, in order to provide some sort of protection while I'm playing the guitar, so that it doesn't scratch and wear off the iconic emblem once again. But will such an idea work? And more to the point, what am I going to use? Good question. How about this? A touch of gingham, perhaps?
Hey, don't even think about it, you crazy old fool!
I guess not, then. A screen covering for a 10-inch tablet may do the trick, but too brittle, methinks. Think along those lines, there has to be somebody who manufactures transparent self-adhesive pickguards, which turns out such things do exist. So, relying upon the good old World Wide Web, I located a Luthier Supplies, that's Luthier, not Lucifer, by the way, and ordered myself one of these self-adhesive pickguards. Then, having turned the house upside down, hunting high and low for my elusive tracing paper, I ended up having to go out and purchase some more. So, taking a sheet of the tracing paper and adhering it or sticking it to the guitar with some coloured tack.
Hey, you can't say blue tack. I didn't. Must have been me then.
I then drew a light outline in pencil of the pickguard and cut it out afterwards. Thus, here is the template that I prepared earlier. Anyway, enough talk. The time has come to put the plan into action. The next stage is to set up my laptop in front of me, so that I can actually copy an image that I took before the pickguard wore out, so I have some idea at least of what I'm doing. Then I shall enlarge it. With that done, and now that I can see it, I shall brush off any debris and dust that may be on the guitar body, give the wipe off to make sure there are no greasy fingerprints, being as paint won't stick to it, and give the pens a shake, and here we go. As you can see, I am redrawing and repainting this design freehand, as shaky as that may be, so it is highly unlikely that it will be 100% accurate. In fact, it's more than that, it's extremely likely that it's not even going to be 1% accurate. And if you do make a mistake, don't be afraid to erase your error and redo it, or even start again, because the best time to do so is when the paint is still wet. The paint also dries very quickly, by the way. So as the old adage goes about watching paint dry, whilst we are doing so, I'm going to tell you a little story about hummingbirds. A few summers ago, I was in Michigan and I saw a hummingbird for the first time. I'd been there 3 years in a row, and this was the first year I saw one. This first sighting for me of a hummingbird occurred just after a friend of mine called Jenny, who had been referred by another friend, Dale, had put my neck back into place, having had a bit of a disaster when somebody rather hefty fell on me in a drunken stupor one night. My neck was a bit like a staircase thereafter. So once Jenny had done the deed and put my neck back into place, I nipped outside for a cigarette. Whilst doing so, a hummingbird flew to a potted plant a few yards away. Being over the moon to see such a spectacle, I watched this little bird for a few seconds, and then it did a 90-degree turn from the pot plant towards me and hovered probably a distance of 2 feet from my head, looking me directly into my eyes, its little beady eyes. What a sight to behold! I felt empowered by such an event, I can tell you. And that wasn't to be the only time, because the following year I was back at Dale's, staying with him and his wife Denise, and we were having a bit of a party in his backyard, and a hummingbird flew over. I was talking to Dale and another fellow. Hummingbird flew over, turned, came back, and it hovered again above me, looking at me, not at the other two fellows, just me. Amazing. I have since found out through my partner Angie that one of my spiritual guides, or maybe my only spiritual guide, according to the Native American medicine wheel or socket hoop, is a hummingbird. So there you go. Maybe that's reasoning behind why I bought myself a hummingbird guitar as well. Who knows? Et voila! As I've already said, not an accurate copy. It's my own version of a design that cannot be improved upon, in my opinion. Anyway, repainting the hummingbird turned out to be the easy part for me. Next came what turned out to be the tricky part, as you will see in its entirety, complete with errors. Firstly, I placed my pre-prepared template on a cutting board and secured it with coloured tack, which is actually blue, so that it didn't slip. Having drawn around the outline of the template with a marker, I then removed the template and the tack to leave the outline. Then, using a craft knife, I very carefully scored around the outline and cut it out with a pair of scissors, like so. I did this without the aid of a safety net, hairnet or beer snood, taking great care not to cut off my fingers, just in case I wouldn't be able to play the guitar ever again. Mind you, that might be pleasing to some. I was very economical drawing out my template so I could get 2 templates out of the sheet for future use or even for another guitar. Plus, I offered the self-adhesive pickguard cover to the guitar to make sure that it fit properly, and this is when I realised my mistake. You see, I drew the outline of the template on what I thought to be the top part, which would be the upper portion, but it turned out there was actually a protective film on both sides. Oh! So it turned out the self-adhesive side was on the wrong side now, and it wouldn't work because it would be back to front. This wasn't insurmountable, however, so all was not lost. I therefore had no choice but to make the pickguard cover in 2 pieces. No big deal though, really. In all fairness, this is my first attempt at doing something like this, so please forgive me. With the main section made, I then placed it in position and marked with a marker where I needed to trim just to make sure it was an almost perfect fit. I then trimmed that with my scissors, et voila!
Yet again!
Placing the new self-adhesive cover over the original pickguard, I worked backwards, peeling back the paper from the lowest point, the bottom right-hand corner, in effect. Pressing down firmly with my fingers and smoothing it out as I moved slowly backwards, and very carefully, by the way, in the hope of ensuring I was ridding the underside of any air bubbles that may exist, whilst I was also keeping my fingers crossed that there wouldn't be a chemical reaction caused by the self-adhesive glue and the acrylic paint.
Blaboom!
I was also being extremely lazy and not removing the strings, but unfortunately I discovered I needed to, which only takes minutes to do so, I hasten to add. This of course made it much easier for me to operate, because it turned out a bit of a disaster had arisen and a piece of the backing cellophane had actually remained and tore away and was actually stuck down with the new pickguard cover. So very gingerly I teased at the offending piece of cellophane with the sharp-edged blade of my craft knife. This was a pretty time-consuming affair, I can tell you, but phew, big sigh of relief, it came away. in one piece too. Thus I continued to smooth out the overlay, but I wasn't happy with my result. I needed to lift it with the craft knife blade again so as not to leave any fingerprints on the underside which would show up on the front, and I stuck a piece of cellophane to the backy piece as I did so that no fingerprints would be left there. Turned out that worked well too. Lady Luck seemed to be definitely on my side for a change. Then it was time to add the missing piece. Look, you can hardly see the join, so long as you're squinting your eyes and blindfolded in the dark with your eyes shut. In a perfect world, eh? But hey, my world is far from perfect. Anyway, we're nearly home and about, so peel back the backing cellophane, or the fronting cellophane, whatever you want to call it, buff it up with a cloth, and Bob's your Uncle Fan is your Aunt Sally. Well, I'm pretty pleased with the overall result. You live and learn from your experiences. You can do this in roughly 2 to 3 hours all told, but only time will tell how durable it shall be, in which case I may have to come back with another video and let you know the result. In the meantime, folks, please take care of yourselves, and please do like and subscribe if you would be so kind. Thank you very much for watching.